Welcome to Marnie Reed Presents Connect to Develop, where we provide insight from healthcare leaders on the hottest topics and trends. We have an incredible guest today. Not that they all aren't amazing, but today's guest has mentored dozens of orthopedic surgery leaders and really blazed the way for women who aspired to break the glass ceiling in, let's be honest, what's still a very alpha male-dominated industry. Today we're going to get granular about the role of a mentor and sponsor. That's two different roles. Sometimes they can be a hybrid in your career success and your role as a mentee in steering this ship, so to speak. So without further ado, I introduce you to Dr. Rina Jain. Rina, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, Marnie. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I just want to say I have been listening to the various other podcasts that you've put on. They have been amazing, inspiring. I am just so tickled to be here.
Well, we all have to just follow your lead. So before we get into the good stuff, can you give us definitions from a surgeon to surgeon standpoint on the role of a mentor versus a sponsor?
Oh, sure. So the word mentor actually comes from Greek mythology, the Odyssey. Mentor was a friend to Odysseus, and he actually provided advice and guidance to the son of Odysseus, Telemachus. So a mentor is more of a guide, provides feedback, advice, some training, and kind of points someone in the right direction. A sponsor, on the other hand, can be a mentor, but is really someone who advocates. For example, a sponsor can recommend someone to be hired, to be promoted, to be put on a panel or a committee. Really, a sponsor is a very, very strong advocate that proactively seeks out opportunities to help someone else.
I love that. And I don't know if you knew this, but I was a total Greek mythology nut back in my grade school days. That's a great definition. If I'm sitting there and, maybe I'm either a resident, maybe I'm, 3 years into practice, can you give us examples from a surgeon standpoint of the type of role a mentor would have in the various settings, right? You've got everything from private practice to training to academia and a sponsor as well. So I can sit there and kind of, scroll through my department or my practice and get an idea of who I could approach.
Oh, sure. So throughout our training and throughout our careers, we've had various mentors who give us career advice. They kind of provide an example for us to aspire to. So I think of, say, a faculty advisor that I might have had in residency or a trusted colleague who might be a bit older and more experienced with whom I connect for advice. Now, a sponsor is someone who may have recommended me for a position on a committee or to speak at a conference or said, hey, Rina, you should be giving this presentation. I'll go speak to the chair of this person, or someone who's advocated in getting a job. A sponsor kind of really opens those doors, makes introductions, and gives you a way in and a path forward in achieving your goals.
Could a practice manager even be a sponsor for a surgeon?
Oh, absolutely. Anybody can be a sponsor. You don't have to necessarily have another surgeon be that person. It could be a practice manager. It could be an administrator who is helping you out with a various project or recommends you for some sort of a role. So it really can be anybody. It's very important to make connections. Be nice to everybody. You never know who might end up becoming a sponsor for you, or that you yourself might end up becoming a sponsor for someone else.
In your mind, what is the role of a mentee in a relationship? And does that role kind of change as you progress in your career? Because even though you are extremely high up in the orthopedic and the hip and knee communities, I'm sure you still have mentors and sponsors out there. And I'm sure your role as a mentee now is very different than, when you were first in practice.
Yes, indeed. We all evolve over time. I mean, the mentoring relationship, it really is primarily for the benefit of the mentee. The mentor is volunteering her time, her energy, her resources. So a mentee should really try to be clear about what she wants from the mentor. Is it career advice? Is it advice on time management? How to look for a job? Or does the mentee want a sympathetic ear, somebody to whom she can vent to, or all of the above or more? And one thing I do want to touch on, especially for mentors, is this savior complex. I mean, a lot of us mentors mentors, we take on that role because we truly want to help others. We want to pay it forward. But it doesn't mean that we as mentors should expect our mentee to follow our guidance or advice explicitly. And it isn't the role of the mentor to solve the mentee's problems. And it is so easy to fall into the trap if the mentee needs help, is in trouble, that the mentor has to swoop in and come to the rescue. At best, a mentor can guide, assist, or sponsor, and the mentee shouldn't expect the mentor to be the problem solver for everything. And as a mentee, be honest with your mentor. Remember, it's a safe space, this mentoring relationship. You can be vulnerable, but please don't lie, don't fabricate, don't make up things. That would be the ultimate disrespect to your mentor. And be genuine. The truth always does come out.
Can you talk about, I talk about all the time political points, right? Anytime I ask a favor of someone, I know that hopefully I have enough political points to ask for that level of favor. Can you talk about the political points that are at risk when a mentor or a sponsor advocates for someone, and what happens if that mentee doesn't pull through?
Absolutely. That's another really big factor. As a mentor, if I'm advocating for somebody or sponsoring someone, I am kind of putting my name on the line here, my reputation. So we really want to vet our mentees, and hopefully, and I think it is true of most cases, mentors and mentees have a very good relationship. It is a very honest, a two-way kind of good communication. But if a mentee has been dishonest, has misrepresented himself or herself, and then the mentor says, oh, here, I recommend this person for this job or this residency or this fellowship, and it turns out that the mentee was totally disingenuous, that ends up looking or reflecting badly on the mentor. So we just have to be very, very careful in how we recommend people. A lot of us have good gut instincts. We are people persons and we like to interact with people. We try and make good judgments. And again, we genuinely want to help others to the best of our capacity. So it is definitely a little bit of a risk. So, but just like in anything, when we have residents or fellows who rotate with us and they do well on their rotation, then we recommend them for a job. We write them reference letters. We hope that everything does end up working out. So we're just making our very best judgments with whatever information that we have.
So let's say that I'm listening to this and I'm either a trainee surgeon or an early career surgeon, or I'm in the corporate side and I'm, maybe newer in my career, maybe a few years in. What is your suggestion for those out there that see someone very high up that they respect and admire and want to emulate in approaching that mentor to potentially help them?
If you don't ask, then you will never know. So I will say the worst thing that can happen is that the person says no. So you have really nothing to lose by asking. Now, sometimes it can be intimidating trying to approach someone. So it depends on what role that person has. For example, if it is an academic surgeon that is at a different center and you would really like to get to know that person or ask for advice, you can try and see if you have any connections peripherally. Maybe you have a surgeon more locally and say, hey, do you know this person? Could you make an introduction to me? And it's almost like 6 degrees of separation. Eventually, you may find that there is someone with whom you can make a connection through a friend of a friend of a friend, so to speak. Another way is if you attend meetings and you see someone giving a really good presentation, perhaps afterwards, after the talk is over, you can kind of catch them and say, hey, by the way, I really liked your presentation, and I just have this one question, or something to at least start a conversation. So those are some ways of doing it. Sometimes cold calling does work, or calling the person's assistant and explaining what you need. But again, try and find connections, a way to connect with that person, maybe even peripherally, that will lead you directly to that person.
How can you take a scheduled mentoring program and make it work for you when you're simply assigned someone?
At the beginning, when you're just assigned to somebody, it may feel like, okay, who is this person? I think both the mentor and the mentee have to take a bit of time to get to know each other. Are they a good fit? Do they have a communication style that seems to work for both of them. And also, it's a matter of scheduling. I mean, if somebody is on the East Coast, another person's on the West Coast, it still can work, absolutely. But it can sometimes just be a scheduling thing more than anything else. So, what they really need to do, first of all, is get to know each other. Do they actually seem to have a rapport? And if it just doesn't seem to work after a few meetings, it's okay to say, you know what, thank you so much for your time, but maybe we can call it quits for this one, or maybe just keep the door open for a future meeting and then just move on. And nobody should be offended. Human beings are just very complex people, and two good people may not necessarily be the exact right fit for each other.
So should I have more than one mentor if I have aspirations and goals? And if so, what could those people look like? What are those roles?
As surgeons, or just as people in general, we wear different hats all the time. And as a surgeon, we are the captains of our ships, like we're the leaders in our operating room. We are running our own clinics, but at home, we're also taking care of our families, hanging out with our friends. So we ourselves have different roles. So it's natural to think that, well, maybe I need a mentor for these different types of things. As a surgeon, if you're in academia, you obviously want to excel in that. But there's also the role that, well, you're actually the surgeon, you're doing a hip and knee replacement. So there's the clinical side as well. There's the practice management side. And you may not be able to find one mentor who can fulfill all of these different needs. So it is absolutely okay to seek out different mentors for different needs. And the relationships can be short term. They can be long term. They could be a one-time mentoring session. They could be a mentoring relationship that lasts for many, many years. And at the same time that you are a mentee, you could be mentoring someone else or sponsoring someone else. So you'll fulfill many different roles.
Is there ever a formal stop point? Do you just kind of let the relationship evolve maybe into a friendship? I know that maybe that could be some angst for people. What happens when I outgrow this person? But maybe, and it gets trickier, right? Maybe the mentor or sponsor really wants to stay involved, but they're really not helping anymore at that point.
Well, some of the mentoring programs that I have been involved with do have a formal stop point. Usually it's at about 1 year. However, there are times the mentoring relationship continues because the mentor and the mentee have built up such a good rapport. And sometimes it just stops sooner because it wasn't a good fit, or if the mentee achieved the goal. So again, this goes back to being really, really honest. And there are mentoring situations where only a short-term relationship is needed. For example, if you have a senior resident who is looking to get into a fellowship program, wants some advice on how to go about this, that may be a much, much shorter goal. And as soon as the resident has gotten into fellowship, she may say, oh, thank you so much. And just to give you a follow-up, here is where I am at, and I appreciate it. But again, I would still recommend in that keep the door open. I just had an email the other day from one of my former residents that she's now doing her fellowship. And I thought, wow, that's great. I haven't heard from you in years. But again, we're keeping the door open. You never know what connection might come in handy later on, or it's just nice to connect with people regardless.
So, what is some of the best advice that you've been given from mentors or sponsors before?
One of my early mentors was a senior resident when I was a medical student. He said to read at every opportunity rather than sitting around in one of the doctor's lounges gossiping or belly aching about turnover time. If there was nothing you could do, like scrub a floor or open trays to help the nurses, he told me, read, read, read. Knowledge is power, which is also what my dad used to say. And another really good piece of advice is don't be quick to judge. Listen to the whole story. Don't jump to conclusions. There are always 3 sides to a story: side 1, side 2, and the truth. And probably one of the best pieces of advice that I ever received was from Dr. Davey. That's the person with whom I did my fellowship. And it wasn't so much what he said, but it's what he did. He set the example of a model surgeon. He was kind. He never, ever yelled at anyone, not the resident, not the nurse, not the medical student, and not the fellow, which was me. He was calm, even when things were going badly, such as when the resident or fellow, i.e., me, fractured the femur while impacting the femoral component. He never swore. He never cursed. And, he believed in me that I was a good surgeon, that I could do this job as an orthopedic surgeon and as a short little woman doing total joints. He had so much confidence in me that he gave me confidence in myself. And I am really, truly forever grateful to him for giving me the opportunity to learn from him and for giving me this great life.
So truly created that safe space that you were talking about. I love that. So let's talk about advocation and sponsorship and what is the proper etiquette for when someone sponsors you. And in all transparency, Rina has been a phenomenal sponsor for me and I'm sure hundreds of other women along the way. So what does the etiquette look like to make sure that that person knows that you're truly grateful and that it wasn't a simply, hey, thanks for what you can do for me. Now I'm off and running to the next thing.
I think it's very important to maintain connections. So, again, be honest, be grateful, be thankful, express it. Just pick up the phone and just say thank you and continue to maintain connections, like maybe by text or email or a call or when you see them at a conference. I mean, I was very lucky to have trained under some really good surgeons. They stood up for me. They insisted that I was able to do cases during residency. They recommended me for jobs. They helped launch my career. And there have been others along the way, like senior residents. And I always told myself that if I have the opportunity, I'm going to help others as residents and attendings had helped me. And we just have to continue to make connections, maintain those connections. It's just what we do as human beings. So as part of etiquette, say thank you, send thank you notes, call them, check in with them every now and then. And who knows, you might even collaborate with them on future projects.
Let's say that you get into one of those mentorship programs and you get assigned a mentor, and this mentor or sponsor is just, kind of gung-ho, but you start to feel like there's not a good symbiotic relationship, and maybe they're even potentially doing a little bit more harm than good, especially if that person is, of higher stature. How would you recommend breaking off that mentorship or sponsorship? Or do you just, let it peter? You really emphasize being honest. This is probably not something that you want to say, hey, you're actually hurting my career more than helping. How does one, balance that kind of situation?
Honesty is still the best policy. Be honest with your mentor. Thank them for taking the time to speak with you. Tell them that you are very appreciative. Again, mentors do truly want to help others. That's why they signed up for mentorship programs. So just go ahead and tell them that you are very, very grateful and appreciated their time, that you're perhaps moving in a different direction, and keep that door open. You don't ever want to close off any connections. Just leave it open, make sure things are cordial, and it's okay to check in with them later, several months later or something if you wish. But again, just tell them thank you and that you are moving in a different direction.
Any insights on what good would look like if you were to wave a magic wand and build out a perfect mentee that that you could help? What does that system look like?
Well, we all forge our own paths, and mentoring does take time, and it's actually a time-honored tradition in the medical profession. Medicine is essentially an apprenticeship. And being a mentor, honestly, it has a little bit of a selfish benefit. We are guiding the next generation of colleagues who will take care of us. And for me, it's, well, see, who's going to take care of me when I need a hip or a knee replacement? So what does good look like? It's where there's mutual respect, honesty, and compassion. And remember, a mentor is not a parent. A mentor is not a psychologist. A mentor can be a friend, but the mentor has to be willing to be honest and provide feedback. And it is the person who can sometimes say the hard truths that are difficult to hear. Yes, absolutely, a mentor can be a cheerleader and point someone in the right direction, but a mentor can't drag that mentee to where she does not want to go. And for mentors, they should also be self-aware of mentor fatigue. There are good mentors that are often bombarded with requests for students to shadow them, provide mentoring experiences. And these same great mentors also have a very tough time saying no because they love helping mentees. But mentoring does take time. Don't take on more than what you can handle. Practice self-care. I mean, I tell my mentees, eat right, exercise, get enough sleep, take enough time. I have to make sure I follow that advice. And sometimes it means saying, no, I'm so sorry, I cannot take on another student. I've already got 3 of them shadowing me in clinic, and it is getting to be overwhelming. So we absolutely have to take care of ourselves. And as a mentor, ask the mentee what he or she or what they want out of this. Just get it out there, see what the goals are, and just see where that conversation goes. Keep things flexible. Find out, what kind of mentoring do you want? Do you want a one-time chat? Do you want a more longer term? How much frequency of contact do you need? Are you actually the right type of person? If it looks like the mentee kind of needs more maybe psychological advice or something, it's like, okay, I am not your therapist. Let me see if I can kind of point you in the right direction in helping you find that person, but I am just not the right person to help you. And again, it's about being very, very honest with each other.
Well, Rina, this has been absolutely incredible as always. I can't wait to see you at AUKUS coming up. And for our listeners out there, if you'd like to connect with Rina Jain and to learn more about the Women in Arthroplasty, which she holds some very key leadership roles, please check out her bio in the show notes. Thank you so much, Rina.
Marnie, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure for me as well. And I just love everything that you have done for orthopedics, for us women out there who are toiling away. We very much appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to Connect to Develop. You can find more interviews and Marnie's Minutes on my YouTube channel at Marnie Reed Presents.